Okay, so you want to own a snow removal company, buy a truck, bolt on a plow, wait for it to snow, get paid. No inventory to stock, no perishable product, no customers to chase down. The sky does the marketing for you. When the flakes start falling, your phone rings itself off the hook. What could possibly be simple about a business where the weather does your selling for you? Here's the strange part. In the winter of 2022 into 2023, one landscaping company in Virginia spent the entire off-season prepping trucks, training crews, and locking in seasonal contracts, and then didn't drop a single plow blade the whole season. Not once. Meanwhile, 3 states over, a different company in a heavier snow year was turning away customers because they didn't have enough trucks to keep up. Same industry, same equipment, same skill set. One company's entire year depended on a number nobody in that business gets to control. How many inches fall out of the sky between November and March? By the end of this video, you'll know why the exact same snow removal contract can either make you rich or nearly bankrupt you depending on one pricing decision. Why a single slip and fall on someone's icy sidewalk can wipe out an entire season of profit. Why some of the smartest operators in this business have started buying insurance against snow simply not falling. Why an app modeled directly on Uber has quietly inserted itself into a business that used to run entirely on a guy with a truck and a phone number. Why one city can spend more clearing a single inch of snow than most of these companies make in a year. And why the exact same fragmentation to consolidation story we've covered on this channel in car washes and hair salons is now showing up here too. If any of this is new to you, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. So what's the first decision that determines whether this business makes you money or quietly drains you? Per push versus seasonal. Under a per push contract, you charge every time you show up to clear a property, usually triggered once snowfall crosses some threshold, typically 2 inches. For a small residential driveway, that's somewhere between $30 and $75 a visit. For a small commercial lot, the range runs from about $75 to $450 a visit. And for a large commercial property, it can run $200 to $900 or more every single time you plow. On paper, that sounds great. More snow, more visits, more money. And in a heavy winter, it can be. But per push pricing means your entire income is a direct bet on the sky cooperating, storm by storm, all season long. The alternative is a seasonal flat rate contract. The customer pays you one number up front, agreed before the first flake falls, and you're obligated to keep their property clear no matter how many times it snows that winter. Residential seasonal contracts typically run $350 to $600 for the whole season. Commercial seasonal contracts range from $1,000 on the low end to $15,000 or more for large, complex properties. Seasonal contracts give you something per push pricing can never give you, a known number, locked in before winter even starts. Here's the part that explains why so many new operators pick the wrong side of this without realizing what they've actually signed up for. You're not really choosing between 2 ways to build the same job. You're choosing who absorbs the risk of the sky doing something unexpected. Price everything per push, and a warm, dry winter can leave your truck sitting idle in the driveway for 4 straight months, while your insurance and loan payments keep coming due regardless. Price everything seasonal, and a brutal, storm after storm winter can have your crews working 18-hour days for a number you locked in back in October when nobody knew it was going to snow like this. Neither model eliminates the risk. Each one just decides whose bank account absorbs it. Most experienced operators land somewhere in between, a base of seasonal contracts for stable cash flow, layered with per-push work on top during a heavy season for additional profit. But building that mixed book takes years of local weather data and trial and error to get the ratio right. Now, before any of that pricing decision even matters, there's a fixed cost sitting at the front door of this business that most people underestimate. The truck itself. A basic commercial plow setup, truck, blade, and professional install, can run anywhere from around $8,000 on the low end to $25,000 or more once you add salt spreaders, backup cameras, and the accessories a serious operation actually needs. Multiply that across a fleet of 5 or 6 trucks, and you're looking at a six-figure upfront investment before you've cleared a single driveway. Some operators recover that cost within 1 or 2 good seasons. Others, especially the ones who bought heavy right before a historically light winter, are still paying off equipment that barely left the garage. Picture the operator who did everything the textbook says, bought 3 trucks the summer before at close to $60,000 total once every truck was outfitted, locked in 40 seasonal contracts by October, priced using 5 years of local weather averages, hired 2 part-time drivers for the season, then watched a warmer than usual winter roll through and deliver barely half the average snowfall. The seasonal contracts still paid out in full, since that's the entire point of a seasonal contract. But the fleet sat mostly idle, the part-time drivers barely worked, and the truck loans kept coming due on a normal monthly schedule, regardless of how little snow actually fell. He didn't lose money that year, he just didn't make nearly what the equipment was sized for, which, in a business with 6-figure fixed costs, can feel almost as bad. So the money is sitting right there in the driveway. Here's the risk sitting right there with it. A single slip and fall on a poorly cleared sidewalk is not a minor inconvenience in this business. It's an existential threat. General liability insurance for a snow removal contractor runs around $43 a month, roughly $520 a year, which sounds almost absurdly cheap for what it's protecting against. A typical slip and fall claim averages around $30,000 once medical bills and lost wages are counted. But the serious cases go much higher. Real documented settlements have hit $145,000 for a single ankle surgery tied to an icy fall, and severe injury cases with long-term care have blown straight through the standard $1 million liability limit that most policies carry. And here's the detail that catches a lot of new operators completely off guard. Many commercial property management contracts quietly shift all slip and fall liability onto the snow contractor by contract language alone, meaning the company clearing the ice can end up holding 100% of the legal exposure for an accident that happens on someone else's property simply because of how the contract was worded when they signed it. So the entire industry is built on a genuine contradiction. The product itself, clearing ice so people don't fall, exists specifically to prevent the exact kind of claim that can end the business if it fails even once. Now here's the number that explains why some operators in this business have started doing something that sounds almost backwards: buying insurance against snow not falling. Because per push and seasonal pricing both still leave you exposed to the same underlying problem. You genuinely do not control the input your entire revenue depends on. So, a segment of ski resorts, shopping centers, municipalities, and increasingly snow removal companies themselves have started buying what's called parametric snow insurance, a form of weather derivative. You pick a snowfall threshold and a time window. If the actual snowfall over that window comes in below the threshold you set, the policy pays out automatically, no lengthy claims process required, because the trigger is just a number from a weather station, not a judgment call from an adjuster. Premiums are treated as an ordinary business expense, and the payouts generally aren't taxed as income. It's the snow removal industry in effect, admitting out loud that weather is not a controllable business variable. It's a financial risk that can and should be hedged like any other kind of market exposure. That single fact reframes everything else in this business. You're not actually running a service company in the traditional sense. You're running a company whose entire revenue curve is a bet on a number neither you, nor your customers, nor anyone else in the transaction actually controls. And the more sophisticated operators in this space have started treating that bet exactly like a trader would, by hedging it directly in the financial markets rather than just hoping for a heavy winter. So how does an individual operator actually survive a season like that Virginia company had, the one where the plow blade never touched the ground? Diversification into the other half of the calendar. Over half of all snow and ice service providers in the country are actually lawn and landscaping companies that added snow removal as a second seasonal revenue stream, not standalone snowplow operations. And the data on this is stark. Companies that run both landscaping and snow removal together average around $435,000 a year in revenue, nearly triple what snow-only operators bring in. The logic is simple once you see it. The same trucks, the same crews, and often the same customer relationships, can generate income in July from mowing lawns and trimming hedges, and in January from clearing driveways. A slow, snowless winter stops being a company-ending event and becomes, at worst, a disappointing quarter inside a business that's still profitable the other 9 months of the year. Here's the part of this story that mirrors something else entirely, from a completely different industry we've already covered on this channel. In 2014, an app called Plows and Mows launched with a simple pitch: make ordering a snowplow as easy as ordering dinner. A homeowner opens the app, answers a few questions about their driveway and the expected snowfall, gets an instant quote, and the job gets pushed out to a network of local, independent contractors who can accept or decline it. The exact same on-demand gig economy structure that built Uber and DoorDash, just applied to a guy with a plow blade instead of a guy with a car. The app now operates in more than 60 U.S. cities and keeps roughly 30% of every transaction for itself in exchange for handling marketing, billing, and customer support, so the actual contractor never has to answer a cold call from a stranger during a blizzard. For an independent operator, that's a real trade-off. Give up nearly a third of the job's value in exchange for overflow work you wouldn't have found on your own, filling in the gaps between your own seasonal contracts without having to spend a single dollar on advertising. It's the same basic mechanism you've seen before on this channel in a completely different context. A platform inserting itself as the demand generation layer on top of a highly fragmented, historically relationship-driven local service industry, and taking a cut simply for being the place where supply meets demand instead of doing the actual physical work itself. There's another layer to this most homeowners never think about: who actually plows the public street their driveway connects to. Most cities and towns don't run snow removal entirely with their own municipal fleet. Many contract out a meaningful share of that work to private companies through competitive seasonal bids, the same private operators running residential and commercial routes on the side. That means a single mid-sized local snow removal company might be simultaneously billing a homeowner $350 for the season, billing a shopping center $5,000 for the season, and billing the township itself under a public contract to plow a stretch of municipal road, all with the same 3 trucks. It's a genuine hedge in its own right. Public contracts tend to be won through multi-year bidding processes and are far less exposed to any single bad sales season than door-to-door residential growth, giving an operator with the right relationships a fourth, more stable leg to stand on beside per-push, seasonal, and gig app income. It's worth being honest here about how much of this is genuinely predictable versus how much is still a guess. Even operators with a decade of local weather data behind them will tell you that a single warm winter or a single freak blizzard can blow up the averages they have built their whole pricing model around. And with regional weather patterns shifting in ways that climate scientists themselves still debate the pace and shape of, nobody in this business, however experienced, can honestly claim to have fully solved the underlying forecasting problem. The parametric insurance products and the seasonal plus per push hybrid pricing models are genuine attempts to manage that uncertainty. None of them eliminate it. So is this still a small, fragmented mom-and-pop industry the way it's always been? Or is that changing too? It's changing in a pattern this channel has now documented in car washes and in hair salons. Valuation multiples in this business currently span an unusually wide range, from roughly 2 times sellers' discretionary earnings for a small, residual, low-snowfall regional operation, up to 12 times EBITDA for a large, year-round, fully integrated platform combining landscaping, snow removal, and facility services under one roof. A gap of 2 to 3 full turns of valuation, driven almost entirely by whether the underlying revenue is fragile, single-season, and weather-dependent, or diversified, contracted, and predictable across all 12 months. That's the exact same fragmentation to consolidation math driving institutional money into car washes and hair salons. Buyers are learning to pay a premium specifically for businesses that have engineered the seasonal risk out of their own revenue model and a discount for the ones that haven't. So, what does this actually look like at different scales? A single truck operator lives entirely inside that risk, storm to storm, season to season, with a slip-and-fall lawsuit or 2 consecutive light winters standing between a good year and a genuinely threatening one. At the complete opposite end of the scale sits a major city government, where the numbers get almost unrecognizable. New York City's snow and ice removal costs have averaged roughly $1.8 million for every single inch of snow that falls, with total annual snow clearing budgets ranging from about $25 million in a light year up to over $130 million in the heaviest ones. A single city government routinely spending, in one bad winter, more than an entire regional industry of small operators might collectively earn. Somewhere in between those two extremes sits the diversified, multi-service operator running landscaping alongside snow removal, who has smoothed that same risk across all 12 months of the calendar, trading some of the explosive upside of a brutal winter for the stability of never having a season like that Virginia company's. And an institutional platform, buying up exactly these kinds of diversified operators at premium multiples, is making a much bigger, much more abstract bet that the fragmentation itself is temporary, and that a company holding enough contracts across enough regions can average out any single market's bad winter against another market's good one. The same logic private equity has already applied to car washes, to hair salons, and to nearly every other local service business fragmented enough for a patient buyer to quietly consolidate one contract at a time. So if you do decide to own a snow removal company, understand what you're actually buying. You're not really buying trucks and plow blades. You're buying a claim on a number that falls from the sky, priced one of 2 different ways, insured against a slip and fall that could erase an entire season in a single afternoon, increasingly hedged in the same financial markets that price weather itself, quietly disrupted by an app charging 30% to connect you with work you used to find yourself, dwarfed in scale by what a single city government spends clearing 1 inch of the same snow, and now being rolled up by the exact same institutional playbook, already reshaping car washes and hair salons into something closer to Wall Street real estate than the neighborhood business it started as. The snow doesn't care which pricing model you picked. It falls or it doesn't. And everything else in this business is just an attempt to survive whichever one it decides to do. If this broke down something you'd never thought about before, subscribe. This channel does exactly this, every single week for a completely different